Okay, so we are learning about evaluating and controlling the technology, okay, especially with the new technologies. Uh, let's go to the place where we stopped last time. Okay, so today we will learn a little bit about responsible judgment. Okay, so uh, we know that nowadays with a huge amount of information on the internet, right? So we have to talk about the responsible adjustment for the contents, right, on the internet. So the question we have now is that should we trust the information from experts or the wisdom of the crowd? Okay. So now we know that on the website, we have so many websites, right? And especially anybody can write anything on the internet, right? So even though it's their intention to, let's say, express their knowledge, but sometimes the one who wrote something on the internet and don't even understand the topic, in depth, right? And that is the big problem for us, right? So when we search, for example, when you type in a question for Google search engine, we receive, say, hundred thousands of the results, right? Some results may be good, but some may not be good. So which one should we trust? So that is the biggest question we have nowadays. Okay? Uh, the the more information we have may not be the better. And in fact, everybody have to deal with that nowadays. So when we want to search for something on the internet, you have a bunch of information and sometimes they are conflicting with each other, right? So depending on who wrote that kind of information on the internet. So that's why we need to learn a little bit about what would be a responsible judgment when we deal with the information on the internet in general, right? And for the new technologies in general. So the experts' information or the wisdom of the crowd, that is the biggest question, right? Okay, so huge amount of information, most of this information is not correct. Okay, we have to say that. As I mentioned before, anyone can write anything, right? So most of the information on the internet is not correct, right? So that is why we have to learn about a responsible way for ourselves and for, let's say, the readers in general. How do we trust the information we found on the internet? So that is the purpose of the discussion we have today. So we know that search engines are replacing librarians nowadays. Okay, how many of you went to the library this month or in the last 3 months in order to search for some information? How many? In the past, we used to go to the library to check out some books, some journals, right? In order to, let's say, find some interest information that we are working on. But not many people are doing that nowadays. I don't say nobody, but that number is shrinking a lot, right? So uh, the search engines are very popular nowadays. That's why I would say that they are replacing librarians, right? But websites are ranked by popularity, not by experts' evaluation. And they just want to count how many, let's say, how to rank the web page by counting how many visits they have, right? So that is an issue, actually, right? So that said, the web pages are ranked by the popularity, how popular they are, not by experts' evaluation. Okay. All right. So the question we have, again, the wisdom of the crowd. Does it mean that when we search for some information we want, right? And we see that, let's say, most of the people watch this content. Okay? For example, we have a bunch of results like YouTube video, right? And we saw that this YouTube video has 1 million watches, right? VS the other one has only 100,000. So which one is better? So most people today will pay attention that rating by the public of the website, right? In other words, the wisdom of the crowd. Okay? Sometimes it's correct. For example, when you go to Amazon.com, right? And if we have two products and one with 5-star ranking and let's say 100,000 reviewers, people tend to trust that, right? Even though there are some scams for, let's say, boosting up the reviews. So they pay someone to write, or they have the employees to have some, let's say, it's easy to manipulate that one. I would say, would put it that way, right? So if you have a chance to learn about the socket programming, right, then you will know that we have tools in order to modify the reviews and let's say boost the popularities of any website we want. Okay? So socket programming is a very popular tool for people to do that. So in other words, we have fake reviews, many different things, right? So that's it. Wisdom of the crowd may not be a good thing for evaluating the technologies, or say evaluating which one is better in in the age of the internet. So of course, if million participate, then the results will be useful. This one is, of course, we have a question mark about this. As I said before, with socket programming nowadays, million participants may not be the correct one, right? Because one or two people, they can have a socket program and that can give out million of reviews, right? So that said, if we really have million different participants, then it's very helpful because it will tell us about, let's say, how popular the web are, and then with that many people, we tend to have a very good, let's say common sense from millions of users. That is correct. But keep in mind that it can be manipulated, right? All right. So here's one example about the wisdom of the crowd. Okay, so it's about the viral monster story that go horribly wrong. Okay, so in 2014, two 12-year-old Wisconsin girls allegedly stabbed a classmate. Okay, fortunately, the classmate survived. She was stabbed 19 times. Okay, And the two children said that they attempted to murder that victim in order to become acolyte of a spectral monster known as Slenderman or Slenderman, okay? Who they also said was going to slaughter their family if they did not kill their friend. Okay, so that was back in 2014, and actually this viral monster story was documented in some TV shows, right? So that was on HBO in 2017. Okay. All right. So Slenderman was first seen in several photos. Doctored photo or altered photos that Eric Nussen had doctored and posted on the forum called Something Awful. So this guy who created some fake photos here, right, and posted some, let's say, stories, and many kids believe that. Here are some of the examples. So they kill the classmates because they believe that if they did not do that, then he will come to kill their family, right? So that said, that kind of, say, incorrect informations are everywhere on the internet, okay? So of course, we will talk about how can we filter that one out, right? What kind of laws we need, okay, and what kind of education we should have for our children, okay. So the photo claimed to be of real children who had later vanished. Of course, it's not true, right? And each picture features the ominous presence of an abnormally thin, tall figure dressed in black with a blank face. Okay. All right. And the Slender Man was born and became a viral phenomenon on the internet, especially with small kids. Okay. All right. So going back to the wisdom of the crowd. So the problem of unreliable informations on the internet are not new, right? So those examples I just showed you are just a very few among huge amount of fake news and incorrect information, etc. And the web magnifies the problem, right? Because it's easy for anybody to post anything. And when we search the internet, we found so many information, right? Sometimes, as I mentioned before, conflicting information. So we need at least to know how to recognize that whether or not that information is not correct or something we have to dig into, right? So first thing when you search the internet is that don't trust that automatically, right? So we have to be able to evaluate that. That is the role of this chapter. How do we evaluate the technology, right? So rating systems are easy to manipulate, like I mentioned before. Okay. Also, we have vulnerable viewers, especially children, right? So, and also old persons that they don't have much knowledge about computer technologies, right? All right. So let's have one example about the wisdom of the crowd. So everybody know Wikipedia, right? And in fact, I was so amazed that when I give out a research project, many of the students cited that, okay, this information I use from Wikipedia. Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit. Okay, whether or not Wikipedia is a good source for the information. Now, Wikipedia is written by volunteers, and some posts are biased and not accurate at all. Anyone can make changes to the Wikipedia, right? Okay. Now, although anyone can write, most people do not. Okay. So that said, if we are serious, right, and we know a lot about the topic, we can contribute to Wikipedia. But on the other hand, there are some people who intentionally try to spread the false information, right? So that said, they have their agenda, so they go to Wikipedia and then make changes to the information there. And many people believe that is Wikipedia, so we can trust it. It's not, right? Because again, anyone can write anything on the internet, including Wikipedia. And of course, I mean, sometimes people will point out that that information is not correct and you spread the fake news on Wikipedia. So in that situation, people will jump in and then they will force Wikipedia to change the false information. But we cannot guarantee everything on the internet, especially for Wikipedia. Okay, and then another example would be Twitch.tv, right? On Twitch.tv also, you found so many different video and then stories, etc. But the question is that can we trust the information there? So it's very, very hard to say that I would trust the information on Wikipedia, right? Maybe it's a good starting point. For example, we are looking for some information, search it, Wikipedia will come up first, right? We can look through that and then verify the information on Wikipedia. And on Wikipedia, usually they also have some citation, okay? Let's say that information comes from these articles, etc. And then we can look through the articles to see whether or not we can trust the information on Wikipedia. So in other words, information on the internet, we have to look at that with a grain of salt, right? So in other words, we have to be able to justify, evaluate, and justify the information we found. Now, another example is about how to run a business or how to run a sport club, right? So now, in 2008, thousands of soccer fans chipped in via a website, myfootballclub.company.co.uk, to buy a British soccer team. Yeah. The soccer teams there did not do very well. And then they put it on the internet. Everybody can contribute, let's say, 100 pounds or more. So they bought the British soccer team, right? So imagine that here, if we have the football team, right? Can we have the team run by a crowd. Okay. So in other words, if we have 100,000 owners, each of them can contribute, say, $100 or $1,000. Would it be viable for running such a soccer team or a football team? So as you know, the wisdom of crowd may not work, right? Because we cannot have even the majority of the crowd agree on anything, all right? So that's why, even though they have a plan that to make the management decision by voting on the web, it did not work out because they never agree with each other on anything, right? So that's why the team failed, and they have to solve the team after a few years. Okay, I think 2 years, more than a year. Yeah, so that is another example about the wisdom of the crowd. All right. Now, similarly, let's talk about, for example, Tesla, right? So you know that Elon Musk is the pushing force behind Tesla. So imagine that if Tesla is run by, say, million of investors, anyone who have, let's say, $100 or $1,000, they have to agree on anything, then Tesla would not be as successful as we have nowadays, right? Or NVIDIA is another example, right? Apple is another example as well. So if the company is run by the crowd, it's very hard to have a successful business in that sense, right? So we have a few questions to discuss here about the responsible judgment, right? So one of the question is, some people who consider themselves capable of distinguishing reliable information from unreliable information on the web are concerned that most ordinary people are not educated, experienced, or sophisticated enough to do so. Okay, so they are likely, the ordinary people are likely to believe lies. They may follow dangerous medical or financial advice, and so on, right? Okay, so now there are many talk shows, right? And many advertisements on Facebook, right? They advertise everything, right? So, for example, I was amazed when I saw the advertisement for using the papaya leaves to cure cancer. Okay, and they have one papaya leaf, bigger the hand, bigger in my hand, and they sold it for $14. Is incredible, right? And someone still believe that because they said that it's on the internet, right? Okay, so that is a real problem for us, right? So that's why we want to talk. How serious or new a problem do you believe it is? Okay, is it serious? Is it a new problem? Did we have that same problem before the age of the internet? Okay, and then do you suggest how to address that problem? Meaning, with, as we know, right? With the fact that anybody can post anything, advising people for dealing with diseases, right? All the problems we have before for the girls that try to kill the classmate, right? So those problems are whether or not they are serious or whether or not they are new. Okay. And any suggestion for addressing that? Okay. Now, we will have a chance to discuss about those questions, right? Now, the second questions we will try to address is about ban in the US, okay? About censoring the books in schools. So PAN America is an organization. They try to have the statistic about the schools and the states that ban some books, right? So there are many states, and within each of the state, there are many school districts that ban some form of books. Okay? So you can see here, it's a color coded. So Texas banned a lot of books. Okay, 751 to 1,000 bans, right? And after that, we have Florida, right? 500 to 750 bans, right? Etc. Okay? So let's look a little bit deeper into what kind of books they banned. So it's about the subject matter. Okay. 41% of the banned books are about LGBT or prominent secondary characters. Okay. 40% is about protagonists or prominent secondary characters of color. 22% ban the books for sexual content. And then 21% ban the titles with issues of race and racism. Title with themes of rights and activism. And 9% ban on biography or memoir. Okay. So, and the last one is stories about religious minorities. Okay. So at the beginning or at first, we may think that, okay, it's a bad thing to ban books in the schools, right? But after we look at what they ban, sometimes it makes sense, right? So that said, the question here is very hard to answer. Is it good or bad to ban some books in the schools? If, for example, sexual content, is it a good thing or a bad thing to ban that one for children under 10 years old? Okay. So probably it's not a bad thing at all, right? Because it's too early for them, right? And then biography and memoir, for example, should we allow small kids to read Hitler's memoir, okay? My Camp, for example. It's banned in Europe totally. But here, I mean, we can still find that book. But in Europe, it's totally banned, right? So that's it. At the beginning, we think that, why ban the books, right? But for the second look, we may just look at what they ban, and maybe we can discuss about which one should be banned or should not be banned and let the small kids access them freely, right? Okay, so that is another thing we have for controlling the technology. Yeah. So also nowadays, we can read many different things on the internet, right? So how can we deal with that? In school, we can ban the library or force the library to not buying this kind of books. But how to deal with the books here on the internet is another thing. Okay. So that's why we want to pay a lot of attention to responsible judgment. Now, the next question we have for controlling the technology is about the search engine. Some people advocate a law requiring Google, Bing, and other search engines to make public the algorithms used to rank the websites for displaying in response to search queries. Okay? Even though we know page rank is the fundamental algorithm that Google uses, but in the real world, because they want to boost the advertisement money, then they have some additional algorithms behind the besides the page rank. Okay? Page rank algorithm is a very fundamental algorithms and it's easy to understand, right? But in the real world, they use additional algorithms as well. So someone want to have a law that force the search engines to public their algorithms, so we know. So how do they rank uh, the results? Okay, so it's very. It's. I think is some maybe it's a good idea, right? But is it realistic? Is a question about that, right? Of course, the algorithm will have a big impact on the society. Why? Let's say if you type in a search query, Google will have their algorithm and they will put your results on the first place. It means that your results will have a great chance to be, let's say, considered by the researchers or by normal people, right? But if they put your results on page 1,000 or even 10,000, nobody even look at what we have, right? So that's why someone say that it's it's unfair, right? Uh, so we want to have a law that force Google search to public the algorithm for ranking, right? So the question is, are you for or against that law? Okay, I want to hear from you, right? Besides, whether or not it's realistic, because of course Google will fight back, right? They don't want to lose their advertisement money. It's $10 billion a year. So, of course, they will fight very hard for keeping their algorithm within their business. All right. Now, another question I want you to discuss is here. Consider a social media website in which display news story depends on the votes of reader. Okay? For example, we want to build up a website, right, for people, and then people can vote on which information you want, right? So that said, for example, for the Democrat, right, they can vote for whatever they want to hear or they want to see, right? So uh, same thing for Republicans, of course, right? Question, is it an ethical obligation of the site operator to ensure that votes are not bought and sold? Okay, so that said, I mean, when we have a vote, of course, as I mentioned, we have the socket programming tools, and people can simply uh, try to manipulate the vote, right? Or they bought the vote from people like, okay, if you vote, I will give you, say, $1 or $2 per vote, right? Um, of course, buying or selling votes is not something new. It happened before the internet, right? So just a story. So when I live in Thailand, in Bangkok, some 30 years ago, right? So when they have an election, you can see that there are people who stay outside of the voting booth, right? And they have a stack of 500 baht, is the money in Thailand, and give one to each of the voter. Okay, here's 500 baht. You vote for my candidate, right? So, and they do it in the daylight. So that's it. Buying and selling votes is not the new thing, right? But the question is that, is it an ethical obligation for preventing that, right? They should have the law preventing people to buy the votes, okay? Uh, but here is about a website, right? So if we want to run such a website, what can we do? So is it merely a good business policy for preventing buying and selling the vote, or is both ethical and business policy? All right. So now it's your turn. So I want to hear uh, about your opinion and your justification. So we will have 5 minutes. Okay, we need about 7 more responses. Four more, please. Yeah. Okay, so I think we can discuss now. Okay. You see that I always have to wait until we have the quorum, right? Because if we don't have the quorum, then the information may not be correct, right? So we want to hear from the majority of you. And if we have just a small number of responses, then it may not reflect what the whole group want to say, right? So here again, the wisdom of the crowd. So if we have enough, I mean, respondents, then I mean the information is useful. Otherwise, if we have just a small group, then that information may not make any sense, right? Okay, so let's look at what we have. Okay, so the first question is about whether or not it's an ethical obligation. Okay, so the majority of us say yes, right? Just a small amount say no. So we are interested in hearing from both sides, right? 11.8% say no. So what kind of justification to have? Yes, to protect its user base, right? Okay, so Otherwise, if we don't have any tool to, prevent the vote to be bought or sold, then it means that the users would be the one who suffer most, right? Because the information may not be, or the results may not be correct or accurate. Okay. It's an ethical obligation for SAI to ensure that votes are not bought and sold, because allowing such practices undermine the integrity of the voting system, right? Uh, yeah, uh, very good. And also, yeah, I like this. Distort the authenticity of user engagement, right? It's distort the authenticity, right? And foster the environment of manipulation rather than genuine interaction. Yeah, I like this, right? It's very true, okay? Allowing this could cause bias in what is shown. Yeah, it's also true, right? Uh, okay. Of course, it's not fair. Yeah, and also bias. Okay, very good. Yeah. Ethically speaking, it would help spread on news that people want and give voting authentication, authenticity. Right? Okay. All right. So it's also true, right? It defeats the purpose of the site, right? So where they want to have the true, uh, say, intention of the users. But here, if they let it happen for buying or selling the votes, then yeah, the purpose of the size would be defeated, right? Okay, very good. So we have some very good justification. Now, the second one is about some people who consider themselves capable of distinguishing reliable information, right? So, how serious or new a problem do you believe it is? And then how do you suggest addressing it? Okay, let's see. Education, yeah, okay. Uh, we need to educate users, right? So that's why we want to learn all of this, okay? We computer scientists and information technologists, we develop the software, the platform. Okay, for example, uh, we help to create social platform, right? So not only creating the technology for users to use, but we are also responsible for training them, right? Like how to recognize the fake news, right? And then how to have procedures or how to have a protocol in order to accept the information they can find on the internet. So that said, not only technologies issues, we also have a plan to educate the users of our platform, of our software, our hardware, right, to use them. Okay, this is a serious problem. Yeah, sure, I agree. Given the vast amount of misinformation online and its potential consequences, right? Addressing require a multifaceted approach. Yeah, very good. Right? Uh, we need many uh, things to do, right? Okay, including improving the digital literacy education, right? Promoting critical thinking skill, fact-checking resources, right? Okay, and enhancing platform algorithm to prioritize reliable information, right? Okay, uh, yeah, very good. But uh, enhancing the algorithm to prioritize the reliable information is a tough thing. right? How can you design an algorithm that can recognize the reliable information? Even recognizing reliable information is tough, right? How do we recognize reliable information? By counting how many users uh, use it. uh, Again, it's not that simple, right? Even though I like this one very much, right? But also, yeah, and also we are looking for that kind of information and still looking for them nowadays, right? Okay, okay. It's an old problem, but still very serious. Yeah, I agree. Right? It's not new, right? It happened even before the age of the internet, right? Don't believe it can be addressed while free speech is allowed. Uh, is true, right? On the other hand, I mean, on the one hand, we want to, let's say, uh, limit the consequences of the fake news and limit them. On the other hand, we still have to respect the freedom of speech, right? So I agree that it's very hard, right? But if we say that it cannot be addressed, then I mean, we would stop doing anything, right? So that's why I want you to discuss it here. Uh, we understand that it's tough for addressing the problem, but on the other hand, we still want to explore many different or multi-faceted approaches that can help at least to limit the damages, right? Uh, while still respecting the freedom of speech. Okay? It's tough, right? But I mean, it it will be much better if we can find some compromises, right? At least, okay. All right. So let's see. Okay, this is pretty serious. Scams are everywhere, and even to experienced people. Yeah, I agree. Right. So that's why we have the problem with our computer system at Southeastern last year. Right. Even though we think that all of us are well educated, but still fall victim to that. Right. To the scam. So if caught at the right time, they can be caught up in the unreliable information. Yeah, very true. So that's why we have to improve our uh, skills, right? Technical skills and also social skills every day, right? All right. So very good. So let's move to the next question. Okay. So many information, I mean, so many good responses we have. And by the way, I keep all of these responses, right? And we'll look back at that. I have to revise my textbook anyway. So uh, your information here will give me some points in order to rewrite or make changes to the book for the next semester or for the next class. Okay. All right. So the next question is, some people advocate a law requiring Google, Bing, and other search engines to make public the algorithm used for to rank websites. Okay. What are the arguments in favor of and against such a requirement? Okay. For it will make seeing biases easier. Yeah. Okay. Okay, very good. Argument in favor: transparency, accountability, trust, and education. Yeah, very good. Right. This one is very good. Right. So we want to have transparency, accountability, trust, and education. Very true. Yeah. Argument against: competitive advantage, complexity, trade secrets, and ineffectivities is also very true, right? If we post it, everyone have to do the same, then every search engine will be the same, right? Because they will, I mean, if the information are there, they will try to modify the algorithm, right? So that said, competitive advantages is no longer exist, right? So it's also very true. And also, it will reduce the innovation, right? So if I have to post my algorithms, that means that I will not have any incentive, right? For example, Google now make $10 billion for advertisement because of the algorithm. And if they have to make it public, then Bing will have the same, Yahoo will have the same results, and who wants to advertise with Google? Okay, so they will give, instead of $10 to Google, now they will give $2 to Google, two to Yahoo, two to Bing, right? So that said, innovation will be, will suffer, right? Complexity also, right? Of course, the algorithm would be very complex. And then trade secret, of course, right? They want to keep the secret for their business. Okay. Yeah. This one in the same thinking, right? So could show corruption or allow other companies to copy their search engine. Yeah. Making the algorithm public can show if they are being skewed to a certain view, but if it's public, then malicious forces can try and mess with the algorithm to get what they want. Is Yeah, they can do it with their search engine, right? But it's hard for them to mess with the algorithm. I think I see your point, right? So it means that if we know how the algorithm works on Google, right, then we can, let's say, if we want to have some malicious results on Google, then we can find out where are the gaps in that algorithm and try to overcome that gap. So Google will have the results skilled to what they want, right? Okay, so yeah, that is very correct. Yeah, so it means that if they know how the algorithm is designed, then they can try to beat that algorithm, right? Uh, like what they have nowadays with security attacks, right? So if they know how the security softwares are working, then they will try to find the bugs or try to find another way to circumvent the protection, right? Very, very true. Okay. All right. So here's another response. I'm in favor of this. Okay. Clarity, especially as it deals with big tech companies, is important. Is important, right? Yeah. We would want to have responsibility, accountability, etc. Right? Clarity as well, right? Okay. But on the other hand, we also have to consider, like the other student mentioned, like competitive, complexity, trade secrets, right? Okay, so that's it. Yeah, that's. I mean, We would want to have it, but the question is it realistic, right? Or how can we make a compromise that is, I mean, the best thing we can do, right? Forcing Google to make it public is very tough, right? So we have to understand that they have trillions of dollars, so they can hire a lot of good lawyers. So fighting against them is an uphill battle, right? So here we the computer scientists and information technologists, we can just express our view, opinions, etc. Right, and then we can come up with the point that Google cannot do whatever they want, right? They have to have the ethical responsibility and then accountability, right? Okay. Okay. All right. So again, many responses, and they are very good, right? So they did develop the algorithm on their own. So by technicality, it would be owned by them, sure, right? And don't think forcing them to make it public would be a good idea, right? Okay, because of many other reasons we already talked about, right? But by the way, we do have the fundamental algorithms, right? We know that they use the page rank algorithms, but of course, in the real life, they have some small changes or even big changes, so they can use it for the advertisement, right? Okay, very good. So the next one is, can a society choose to have certain specific desirable technologies or inventions while prohibiting other? How well can we predict the consequences? I mean, in order to be able to choose a specific desirable technology or invention, we need to predict the consequences of a new technology or application, right? So if the consequences are so negative, then we may not want to have that kind of invention or technology, right? So before we can choose, we need to know how to predict the consequences, right? Okay. And who would make the decision is another big question. Okay. Yes, lawmaker can decide on how it works. Uh, Interesting. Yeah. Do we agree? It would be ideal. I agree, right? But with what we have in Washington, D.C. now, do you think that lawmaker can do it? It's very hard, right? Everybody know it now. Yes, a society can choose to adopt certain technologies while prohibiting others. Okay. Now, next, predicting the consequences of a new technology or application is challenging. Yeah, I agree with this. It's not easy at all. It's challenging, right? But we can make educated guesses based on research and analysis. I agree that is challenging, right? But yes, based on research and analysis is not always possible. Okay. So one example, many years ago, in say 1996, when Sergey Brin, right, and when Google at that time, right, they invented the page rank algorithm, right? At that time, nobody could think that that algorithms has so huge impact on the whole society that we have nowadays. Okay, so in fact, at that time, Google inventor, right, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, at that time they just wanted to sell their model to Yahoo for $100,000, and Yahoo said, it's not that good, right? And now you can see that who could predict the consequences at that time? Nobody, right? Let's say if someone can predict what happened in 1996 and just pay $100,000 for the whole Google company at that one, now they can make trillion of dollars, right? Okay, that is just only one example. Another example is about the NVIDIA. So they started the GPU back in about 2000, right? Yeah, at the beginning, it was very small company, even though the idea of having GPU cores and CUDA programming was great idea, right? Around 2000, even 2010, nobody can predict that. But what happened nowadays? You are talking about ChatGPT, you are talking about AI, right? But all of their models are trained on NVIDIA chips, right? And now we can see that NVIDIA is approaching the top of the line, okay? Approaching $2,000 billion now, okay? So that's yeah, it's challenging, but make a guess based upon research and analysis is not easy, right? Because for the new technologies, research will tell us almost nothing. Okay, like nowadays we are talking about quantum computing, right? Uh, who can predict that? Nobody. Okay, so that's what happened, right? So that's why it's still very challenging at this point. So it's easy to look back at Google, right? NVIDIA, for example, in the past. But for the totally new technology or invention, we can say that it's challenging, but it's not easy at all, right? I do not say that it's impossible, right? But very challenging. Okay. All right. So here's another thing, another response. The people, if is society choosing technologies, then let them find out for themselves if they would like to keep or change. Yeah, it's true, right? So actually, it's what happened so far, right? So if you have a new technology and people starting to use it, if they like it, if they keep using, right? Otherwise, they will throw it away. Like what happened with Yahoo, right? So Yahoo, not many people want to use it, even though I still use my Yahoo Mail because I use it for 30 years, right? And some of my friends, old friends, still remember my Yahoo account. So that's why I still keep it, right? But is it for my day to day? No, not really, right? Okay. Okay. Here is another response. I think we want to discuss, right? No, we cannot choose. Okay. Oops, where is it? I think we go back. Someone just sent in a new response and it shift everything down. Okay, here. No, we cannot choose, right? It took many lives to figure out the seat belt necessary to have in on cars when at first people didn't like them too much, right? Leave it to science to make the decision. Uh, yeah, I like this one, right? It's very hard to predict the consequences, right? And hence, the society want to choose the technology maybe after 10 years or 20 years, right? So like what happened to the seatbelt or what happened to Google, right? Or NVIDIA. So that is very true, right? The society as a whole can decide which technology they want to keep. If they don't like it, it will die down, right? Okay. So leave it to science to make the decision. It's only one thing, right? Let's say another thing like the convenience of the application, the convenience of or the usefulness of the technology. If it's useful, people will keep using that, right? If it's not, then they will not use them anymore. Okay. All right. So very good. So many responses, and I like many of them. All right. Okay. I think that is enough for this. We will wrap up about this chapter. All right. Yes, we already discussed about this. All right. So one thing I want to mention here is about abdicating responsibility. Let's say the previous one I have. We already discussed this. Okay. So the need to be responsible for the technology, right? So what will happen if we don't care about responsibility judgment? For example, what will happen if people are willing to let computer to do their thinking? Okay. So if we are not responsible, we want to have the computers to do the thinking. Okay, like for example, nowadays, ChatGPT or Gemini are very popular, right? Uh, Gemini is in the question mark, right? So that's it. What will happen if people start thinking responsibility? Responsibility, biblically, and try to let the computer to do their thinking. What will happen, right? And then reliance on computer system over human judgment may become institutionalized. It's another thing we have to deal with. Okay, for example, nowadays many people start talking about: do we need to train programmers? Do we need programmers anymore? Because ChatGPT or the AI, Open AI or other AI platform can do the programming, right? Of course, right? So many people now start talking about that. It's not true at all, right? Because ChatGPT or OpenAI and they work by training the models, right? And then it cannot invent the new technology. It simply, say, rely on the own, say, technologies, rely on their own judgment, right, to answer some kind of question. So don't think that ChatGPT can write a good program dealing with a new or an unsolvable problem. Okay, it's not something they can do. So as I mentioned to some of you, some of you before, so when I trained the programming contest, right, I gave them some hard questions, and ChatGPT could not solve it, or they solved it, but it's totally wrong, right? So that's it. If we simply rely on the computer systems, then it will be the end of innovation, right? And that is something we have to deal with nowadays. It's some don't overthinking or think that the new AI can do everything we can, right? So even though someone say that in 5 years, computer system can be very smart, but can it replace human being? Is not that much, right? Okay. Also, fear of having to defend your own judgment if something goes wrong. Okay? Someone just don't want to defend the judgment. So that's why I asked you a lot about what are your responses and why do you think so? Okay? Your justification. So if we fear to have some justification, right? Then someone will simply try to rely on computers like ChatGPT to fear that if my justification is wrong, right? And that means that it may not be the best thing, right? So we human beings need to justify whatever we want to do, right? Or whatever we think about the new technology, right? Okay, so that's it. For the new technologies, a lot of things we have to be able to understand and to justify. Okay, so I think that is all I want to say for this chapter, right? So sorry that time is over. Okay, any question?